So let's go on a little journey today, shall we? A journey right into our own minds. We're going to pull back the curtain and look at the actual mechanics of how we think. And this is all based on a really fascinating deep dive that might just challenge everything you think you know about that voice in your head.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're lying in bed, trying to sleep, or you're just trying to focus, and there's this constant narrator. But who is that really? And are they actually in charge? Well, that's the big question we're going to unpack today.
Here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the very source of our thoughts. Then we'll unmask this so-called thinker who tries to claim them. From there, we'll see how this all plays out in a real-world, high-stakes moment, and then we'll look at a much cleaner way to learn and take responsibility. It all builds step by step, and it leads to a genuinely fresh way of looking at things.
Okay, so where do we even begin with something this big? Well, to understand the machine, you've got to start with its most fundamental parts. And in our minds, that's awareness and thought. But as we're about to see, they're probably not what we think they are.
Okay, this is the first big idea. Think of awareness as the sky. It's just there. It's this silent, open, neutral space. It's not doing anything. Now, thoughts are like the clouds. They're just temporary events that drift by in the sky. The sky doesn't create the clouds, right? It's just the space where they're seen. So if awareness isn't making the thoughts, what is? Well, the answer is conditions. A thought is just a conditioned phenomenon. It's an automatic reflex popping up from memory, from your brain's wiring, even from the last thought you just had. It's not a choice. It's more like a ripple spreading in a pond.
All right, but wait a minute. If thoughts are just these automatic events, then who is the I that feels like it's doing all the thinking? This is where it gets really interesting. We're about to go and unmask this mysterious thinker.
And this is the real sticking point, isn't it? The theory is one thing, but our minute-to-minute experience is that our thoughts feel incredibly personal. It feels like I am having them. So why is that? Turns out, it's all about the timing.
Let's break down what happens when you hear a sound in slow motion. First, the sound just happens, and the hearing of it is automatic. It's just raw perception. It's only a split second after that hearing has already taken place that a separate thought comes flying in, raises its hand and says, "Hey, I heard that." The I literally arrives late to the party and tries to take credit.
So here's the kicker. That sense of I, the thinker, isn't the source of the experience. It's just another thought that shows up after the fact to create a story about it. The thinker doesn't come before the thought, it follows it. Okay, let's bring all this abstract stuff down to earth. How does this actually play out when things get intense? Let's use a great example. You're walking down the street and you see your friend getting into a fight. This is the perfect moment to see the real difference between an ego reaction and an intelligent response. So what's actually going on in that moment? It's not like there's a little CEO in your head weighing the options. It's a seamless flow. You see it, a thought recognizes your friend, your body floods with adrenaline, and an action just flows out of that whole mix. It's all one continuous unfolding event. Now this is where it gets really practical. The difference isn't always what you do on the outside, but what's happening on the inside. An ego reaction is all about protecting your image. What will people think of me? It's full of inner arguments and drama. But an intelligent response? It's anchored in reality, like feeling your feet on the ground. And it's driven by one simple question. What actually helps right now? The action that comes from that is direct. It's clean, and it's free of all that mental noise. So, let's say you act. The fight's over. You might think that clarity would stick around, but nope. That's usually when the I story comes roaring back with a vengeance. So let's talk about why that happens and why it's not some kind of failure. You know, the ego coming back is basically a biological feature. Your brain is a storytelling machine and wants to create a neat narrative of what just happened. Your social survival instincts kick in, pride, shame, worrying about what others think, and all that leftover adrenaline, it's got to burn off somehow, so it fuels the mental instant replay. It's totally natural. And listen, this right here is the absolute key to the whole thing. The thought, I should have done that better, just appearing in your mind, that's not the problem. The suffering starts the moment you grab onto that thought and believe it's 100% true, that it's a factual report about who you are. The thought showing up is neutral. The belief in it is what hurts. Okay, so if we're not supposed to believe the ego's dramatic stories, how on earth do we learn from our mistakes? Well, this brings us to a much cleaner, more efficient way of learning, one that doesn't involve carrying around a heavy backpack full of psychological baggage.
To get this, you have to see that there are two kinds of memory. You've got functional memory, which is just the impersonal data. Doing X led to result Y. That's it. Then there's psychological memory. That's the story the ego tells about the data. Because Y happened, I am a failure, or I am a hero.
So here's the deal. Real intelligent learning is just the simple, automatic updating of that functional data. Your system just learns, okay, that approach didn't work so well, let's adjust. It doesn't need a big, dramatic, self-critical story to make the lesson stick. Everything else is just extra noise.
This all leads us to the final and maybe the most practical part of this whole puzzle. How can we be responsible, ethical people if we're not supposed to feel guilty when we mess up?
Check out this difference. Responsibility is practical. It looks forward. It scans the situation and asks, okay, what's needed now? What adjustment can I make? Guilt, on the other hand, is totally impractical. It's stuck looking backward, just attacking the self-image with the story, I am bad. One is about fixing the situation, the other is just about punishing yourself.
Just think about it. In a high-stakes job, like being a surgeon or a pilot, they cannot afford the inefficiency of guilt. What they have is massive responsibility. They find the error, they update the checklist, they change the system so it doesn't happen again. It's all about clear-eyed correction, not shame. So when you boil it all down, how much of that inner conflict, that self-blame, that psychological drama, is actually required for you to be an intelligent, effective human being? The answer? Zero. Absolutely none.
And let's be super clear about this. This is about becoming a doormat or being passive or weak. It's the total opposite. When you drop all that heavy, distracting noise of the ego story, you are actually free to respond to what's happening with way more clarity, speed, and precision. It's about being more effective, not less.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. What becomes possible in your life when your actions no longer have to serve a story about who you are? What could you do? What could you create if you could just act cleanly, directly, without all the baggage?